Welcome back, and welcome to the third panel of today, which talks about the growth of plant-based products in food production. And we've already heard quite a bit about various food production methods from the science-based community as well. But before we get into that, I would like to introduce to you our panelists. I am still Reili Kalunurm, so that is there. But our panelists from right here, first of all, we have Karin Miller. Karin Miller is from Bon Soya. She is the business developer and expert manager for Bon Soya. And who didn't know, Bon Soya is Estonia's oldest company producing vegan products or goods. And Karin has also been working in the public sector for quite a long time, but she has been involved in Bon Soya from the very beginning. Karin, would you like to add something?
Not to add very much, but just to express my joy that when we started 15 years ago, it seemed that we were the only vegans in the universe. And to sit here 15 years later at a conference talking about plant-based food and the seats are almost full. It's like been transferred, you know, something in Star Trek or something like that. So it's really I'm really happy that I can talk to you and see our customers face to face. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. We have also Stiina Ottender from Balbiino. She is the expert manager, and she handles sales and product development for Scandinavian markets. So she has a very good insight into Scandinavian trends, and she can bring this knowledge to the stage. Stiina, would you like to add something?
Firstly, hello. And yeah, most of it was already said, but in addition, maybe that I mainly deal with private label customers who are, in my case, a bit more demanding if you would maybe perhaps enter the market with your own A brand. But yeah, we will get into it, I'm pretty sure.
Right, thank you. And we have Ivo Remmelg. Ivo is an investor and an author. He is the president of Estonian Business Angels Network. He has extensive experience with startups and acquisitions as well. And he's also a lecturer of innovation management, entrepreneurship, and collective behaviors. Ivo, would you like to add something?
Yes, hello. Good to see you. So many women in conference. Typically, it's a male-weighted thing, but yeah. Yeah, very happy to be here. I'm a little bit shy, or the food is something that I know nothing about it. But from the other side, I was first investor in food talks. Maybe you have read from the newspapers lately. There were some listeria outbreaks, and food talks were commenting it, and so I was the first investor there. It's a food technology company, so some ties at least.
Very good, thank you very much. A warm welcome for our panelists, please. All right, and just as a reminder, you can ask your questions in the slido.com or sli.do or Slido app, and we will try and take these in between some of the questions here. Right, so welcome everybody. Today we've been talking quite a lot about trends, about the trends in plant-based products and consumer trends as well. And I was just talking with the panelists a little bit earlier, that perhaps we can try and expand this a little bit too into the general world of food production. Food is really an integral part of everybody's daily life. And the innovations made there are bound to influence everybody, at least to some extent. And in the beginning, perhaps less, but then more and more. in general, I think there's like quite a lot of topics that we haven't covered yet, like innovations in food production, for example, vertical farming, indoor farming, closed capsule farming, where you put the plant seeds into capsules and then put them into the ground. And I'm sure there's a variety of other options here as well. And in addition to this, certainly some food production or processing methods, perhaps something that helps retain more nutrition into the foods that are being processed, for example, quick freeze or quick dry, or I'm sure there's a variety of those. And this leads me to my first question to you. What do you see as these broader trends or things that influence you in your work and your company and your production? And what would you say is important to you? And perhaps maybe we can start with Stiina from Balbiino. What do you think?
There are a lot of food trends going on at the moment. So maybe I will bring this topic a little bit closer to home, closer to me, and I will just discuss a few trends that we have to deal with every day. Basically, first one I would say is sustainability. Sustainability in terms of getting your resources, your ingredients, whether it's cacao that has to be sustainably resourced, or palm oil, if we have to use it in the product, this has to be sustainably resourced. And these are the things which are quite, so to say, non-negotiable, especially when it comes to private label. These are the things that, so to say, have to be done if you want to sell your product to the retail chain. Secondly, I would also say that we are moving towards more natural products, that the customer and also the retail chain wants to have their products with more natural aromas, more natural colorants, moving towards those plant extracts where we can. And this is also definitely one thing that we see in our everyday business. And thirdly, I think we cannot get over this topic anyhow, is plastic and plastic reduction. This is like the biggest topic, I think, at least in our house at the moment. Whether it is those changing those ice cream plastic tubs into those carton ones, this is one option, but also when you think of an ice cream, like an ice cream stick, it comes in a flow pack. So we are considering getting the package smaller, just maybe like 1 centimeter smaller, but also if you think of the package, it comes in different layers, and like decreasing the amount of layers. It's super technical, but basically my idea is that those changes are quite small and the consumer maybe cannot even understand them when they look at the package. But in terms of this material usage, in total, if we sell thousands and thousands of products, totally in the end, I think the change is already, you can feel it.
It's very interesting that you bring up sustainability and this packaging question. I know that you're involved in the Scandinavian market. What would you say is about Estonian market? I think I just read a paper saying that, well, Estonians are the least aware about all these kinds of environmental problems or sustainability issues as well. What is your general understanding, or how do you see this question? Is it important in Estonia too if you want to bring something to the shelf?
That's a good question, and honestly, I'm not so familiar with the Estonian market. I will just say one more thing, that when we go overseas to Finland, then if we talk to a retail chain today, then if we bring the product out in a plastic tub, then they will immediately dismiss it and say, no, we don't want it. So this is already something super interesting. But in terms of Estonia, I think maybe Bon Soya can comment it a bit more, but I think it is becoming, people are becoming more increasingly educated, but maybe the trend is not totally here yet.
All right, very good, thank you. Karin, I will ask you exactly the same question. What do you see as those trends? And indeed, you can comment on Stiina's remark.
Yeah, Stiina brought out the 3 great whales in protection. The big problems or trends we are facing as well, and there's not much I can add in terms of what else is there. These are the 3 main things that we deal with. And when we talk about what a bit to add to go into depth, I think one biggest trend that drives everything is in food production, not only plant-based food production, is that the customer is more aware. The customer is more aware what they need, what is good for their health, what is good for the planet, what is ethical, and it's something that we must also be aware of. When we compare, for example, Finnish market and Estonian market, yes, I can say that we witness the Finnish market being more active in terms of environmental issues. If you ask, for example, to give you a good example from this year, for example, we had very many questions from our Finnish customers concerning the Brazilian rainforest fires. That they wanting to know where our crop comes from, where our soybean comes from. Not one question from Estonians. This does not necessarily mean that Estonians are less aware of our environmental issues. I'd like to believe that Estonians trust more their own producers. We are close to you, and this might also be the reason for that. But yes, if you speak about very like broad cultural or societal trends, this is the big shift. You have to be able to show your customers that your values are in line with their values. And it does not only mean how you produce, but why you produce, especially plant-based food. Is it because you presume it's ethical? Is it because of health reasons? Is it because of climate? All these issues are important, and so it's also the question who you are, sorry, as a company. So and why are you on the market? What value do you bring for your customers? So this is an issue as well.
Do you think it would be fair to say that although maybe some of the trends are not quite here yet, looking at what you said earlier, that 15 years ago this kind of a conference would have been impossible, do you think they might be coming our way?
Of course. Well, 15 years ago, we started out of scratch, out of really grassroots level, because we saw that there's nothing here and someone has to start, bringing innovation in. So, and in 15 years, a lot has changed. I think that we are definitely and irrevertibly moving towards post-meat, this kind of bioeconomy. And we cannot go back if we see what's happening with the climate and everything. So this is definitely what we are moving towards too.
Mm-hmm. Ivo, let me tweak this question a little bit for you. Looking for an investor kind of perspective, what are the innovations that companies are looking for? What are the new innovative solutions or what they want to develop themselves, or what are the new ventures that people are starting and companies are interested in acquiring maybe? What do you think?
Investments into food industries have been quite small actually. Maybe we have a change in that trend for the last 10 years. It has increased substantially. What are the trends for investment? I think the precision farming is one of the things that use the land better. I mean, not to put too much, how we call them, the fertilizers and just everything just the right amount, yeah, and to get the maximum amount of output. The precision farming, it's a hot topic right now. What else? And also, I think one trend or important thing that will change is the food documentation or the process of making food, transporting food until to your freezer, so that the food is safe to eat. So if you hear about the deaths in food poisoning, it's because of that. So something in the process has gone wrong, and technology can bring a lot of help here, and investments are pouring into this area as well.
So when you were saying that, did you have in mind Estonia or like general this area?
It's general. So of course, from the industry there is a little bit of it's a bad thing when I cannot point to the supplier that they were the reason here. To be really open, it requires a little bit courage. I mean, the latest case in Noa restaurant, I think it's still unknown where did the salmonella come from. So if we had a complete documentation and the we knew where the product came from, so we can reduce these cases.
And let me just get one question also out of the way. Like, are there some interesting startups or ventures or something that you can point us towards and say, well, okay, these may be, bringing us something very new or something interesting?
I'm not particularly competent in this area, but in Estonia, I was the first investor in Food Talks. I think they are doing the excellent job. So that would be the example in Estonia. But I'm particularly not really competent on the food industry generally and the startups in food industry. So it's really, I mean, it's in infancy still, the startups in food tech.
So would you say it's fair to say that it's not quite big enough yet to catch investors' sight?
Yes, and it has to be scalable. So startup and investing is it's all about scalability. It means that the companies have to grow maybe 15% month over month to achieve such high growth rates in traditional industry. It's not an easy thing. So that might be one of the reasons here why we see so few food tech startups.
Just one. Sorry, it feels like I'm interviewing you, but just one more question on this topic. Well, we were speaking earlier that Beyond Meat did have one of the most successful IPOs of this year. I think up to 714% stock value and so forth. What do you think? Do these kinds of success stories kind of spark this willingness to do more there?
Of course, yes. IPO is the dream, yes, of course.
All right. Thank you very much. I will take a couple of questions from the audience already. Stiina, do you know what percentage of ice cream sold in Estonia is plant-based? And, well, also does Balbiino have plans to make plant-based ice cream?
I think it's around maybe 5%, if I'm correct. I'm honestly not too familiar with Estonian numbers, but I think it's around that mark.
Can you bring us the Scandinavian example then?
Actually, in terms of Nielsen, Finland does not have Nielsen for ice cream, but I can say that last summer was a super hot summer. So I think the vegan ice cream category grew like 400% or something over one summer. Yeah.
Interesting. And Karin, let me also ask you, so somebody took the question from the customer seriously. Where does your crop come from?
Our crop comes from Canada. So we do not use Brazilian soybeans.
There you go. All right, but moving on to plant-based products. Which do you see as leading trends? Well, in either the Estonian market or perhaps Scandinavian market or in the world, if you have some ideas there. What sort of demand do you see as a food producer? And what do you think? What are the leading trends in plant-based products?
Well, I think this question, you've been discussing it basically all day. So meat replacement, plant-based meat replacement is something that we cannot pass by. So I think this is one major thing, and because I think it impacts the different groups that consume plant-based food. For environmental reasons, for health reasons, and for ethical reasons. So this is something that drives the trend of plant-based food, definitely. But I also see that people are going back to basics in some sense. That a little bit this kind of enthusiasm about plant-based products that look like meat-based products is weaning a bit. So we're eagerly watching to see how this trend goes, that people would like to go back to simple plant-based foods, simple plant-based proteins, and because we see in our production that this category is on the rise. So whether it is rising in general due to larger consumption, or this is something to watch for, I think.
Interesting, thank you. Stiina, what do you think?
I agree with Karin that firstly, the meat substitutes are definitely the ones driving the trends and innovation. And I think in general, those substitute products for those main categories that we use every single day. That is meat, that is those dairy substitutes, whether it's a milk product, whether it's a yogurt product, fish even. I'm not sure we have too many those substitute products in Estonia at the moment, but in general, I think those are definitely the leaders, especially the ones that we use every day. I don't think necessarily those extravagant new innovative products are the leaders, maybe some which are so good that they will get a lot of press and so on, but I think in general, yes, those main ones.
Let me just ask, what about, you were saying dairy substitutes as well. How do you view that? How does Balbiino view that? Like, are you working on it yourselves, for example?
Basically, my theory is that milk, or so to say dairy in general, and ice cream are quite interconnected, because I think ice cream is also viewed as a part of dairy somehow. But dairy is, of course, something that we use every day. Ice cream is, so to say, I don't know, treat yourself kind of a product. But what I have seen so far is that trends which start from dairy, for example, those protein products, then we have this reduced sugar products, then of course plant-based products, that they eventually slowly make their way into also to this ice cream category. So my idea is that the more people are used to seeing those plant-based products on the shelves in the dairy department, the more used to they are also seeing them in the ice cream department. Yeah.
Ivo, what about you?
Yeah, we've been speaking about the trends, and I would like to give a more generalist view here about the trends in food industry. So let's go back 1 million years or 100,000 years. when we were omnivores, eating some meat that couldn't run away from us, and some plants. Then it was time when meat was made to be eaten, because we had to eat the not so strong animals that couldn't run away. Yes, to keep the herd healthy. And plants are not actually made to be eaten, and plants have thought all kinds of protective mechanisms into them, and that's why so many humans have food intolerances towards some plants. Me, for example, I can't eat onions, and tannins make me really sick, and so on and so on. So coming back to nowadays, so the trends are actually quite a dangerous topic. So having trends in food industry. So we had trend to have zero fat, which caused a lot of issues in public health. So we have a trend to put too much salt into the products, as here. So eat 100 grams of whatever is promoted here, and you get your daily salt recommended dosage. So, but you have to eat something else as well. So then all the added sugars to make our foods tasty. These are all trends. I mean, these trends typically do not make our food better. They are trends of the industry trying to sell us more. Yeah, so that's why I follow in my personal life. I follow less processed foods and healthy balance in all I eat. Less carbs maybe, and of course, I've also made a blood test to know which intolerances I have towards some plant-based foods. So that's more generalist view of these trends we are speaking about.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned processed foods, and also Karin brought this the more real foods and tastes into the discussion. And I think this is one of the questions that has popped up during the day a lot. Like, why even suggest really processed foods, or especially if they're, you have to you have to work a lot on the ingredients in order to make these meat substitutes and so forth. So what is your view on that? How to go back to this more holistic, or I don't know, real food. Karin, what do you think?
Just to add or to reflect a bit on what's been said earlier, I think it's not only a question about whether we evolved into meat eaters or we were created to be plant eaters. I think it is, for now, it is not a discussion over that, but over an overall paradigm shift towards survival on this planet in very many different senses. So how to answer that? Depending on what are the reasons for a person to opt for plant-based diet, the answer is a bit different. If a person is vegan for ethical reasons or to save the climate, then this category, sorry to categorize you people, but these people are not really looking for the most healthiest product, but they rather opt for plant-based alternative. However, there's a rise in the segment of people consuming plant-based food for health reasons, and we see this trend especially among omnivores, that they gradually opt for more plant-based food for health reasons, and for them definitely it is important that that the product is clean. It's less processed. It's they want to know where the bean is coming from. They want to know how it's produced, how it ended on their table. So I think we need to a bit be aware that there are different reasons to opt for plant-based food, and it is definitely difficult to provide for all segments of your customers in this way. But so
right.
I don't know if I answered your questions.
Basically, there are several options for this.
Yeah.
Maybe just to clarify, do you believe that at least substituting the regular processed meat with processed plant-based food is at least a little bit better for the environment as well as for the health, especially if you're going into the store, you're grabbing some convenient stuff, and it's better at least that it's not just bone flour, let's say. Karin and Ivo.
Yeah, well, we discussed just behind the doors. I answered this question already, but I brought out. I think some of you maybe are familiar with the Harvard JAMA study that ended in 2016. That reviewed about 130,000 people that were meat eaters and were vegans, and they considered that the health benefits of plant-based food. That the study was about a year and a half. That they are remarkable in the sense that meat eaters. Eating meat is not contributing for your longevity and for your health. It decreases it. And on the other hand, eating plant-based food, even in this year and a half, it was 18-month study, they see benefits in terms of longevity, in terms of health issues. So you can't argue much with the numbers.
All right, Ivo?
Yes, we have to be very careful translating those studies, because sometimes what stays behind the scenes is that was in particular study, for example, maybe meat eaters drink triple of alcohol that plant eaters do. And maybe they smoke more. So there are much bigger reasons that can bring out this correlation between the health and the single ingredients that they eat. So you can't take these as a real truth, but really take cautious here.
All right, but let's try and go. Sorry.
If I can answer. Why I brought out this study especially is exactly for the reason that you brought out, that in this study there are I think we do, this is absolutely right, that we have to be cautious how things are statistically, how these studies are built up, how these different control groups are set up, what are the different variables that are researched. Why I brought out this study is exactly the reason that in this study, this kind of differences, for example, these variables were very well tested in terms of this smoking, for example, obesity, and different variables that may contribute were left out. So that these control groups were good examples in the sense that I trust this study, what I want to say.
All right, very good. Let's try and go back to more specifically this production topic. And well, I have one specific question for you. How do you feel about increasing plant-based content in products. So, for example, I will bring a random example. This is not something like just anecdotal evidence. But for example, I think a while back, Rakvere lihakombinaat released this 50-50 meat and veggies product. And I believe they have taken this off the shelves by now. And you know, from one side, we've talked a lot about marketing and like what kind of a message we've been sending to people. So basically, you know, there's this kind of a threat that if you put out this kind of a product, maybe some people will say, oh, you're deriving us from the meat that we deserve and so forth. Or, you know, there's, and at the same time, it doesn't really appeal to vegetarians because there's still half meat there. But, you know, derived from this, what do you think about increasing plant-based dairy substitutes, for example, in ice cream, for example?
This is quite funny because actually before I came here, Reelika sent me this question that maybe we'll discuss it. And I also thought about this Rakvere 50-50 meatballs. But this half, so to say, plant-based, half dairy in my case, I think it really depends on a category. When we discuss the ice cream category, I think if we would do like half sorbet, half vanilla ice cream, then I think it could taste fine, it could be appealing, it could sell, but I think it would not serve a purpose of education. In this Rakvere's case, in my hope at least, I think that perhaps this 50 meat, 50 whatever vegetable there was, I think I at least hope that it started a conversation that maybe like what was inside this meatball before, if it's just 50% vegetable now, before it was like, I don't know, bones as you said. So I would hope that it started a conversation. And I also checked online in the online shops whether it's on the shelves today or not. And it wasn't, and I was quite surprised. But then I started to think that maybe this was, so to say, a good gradual product. So to say that people would become educated and they would start questioning about their health, what is inside the products, and maybe now they don't need this gradual product, which is half-half. Maybe they are moving towards maybe only those, I don't know, carrot patties or I don't know, broccoli patties or so on. At least that's my idea.
Karin, what do you think? Is it an option to, let's say, increase soy content in some other products, for example?
Well, I'm not very well aware how meat frankfurters are produced. Maybe someone is in the audience, but as far as I've learned, they have very interesting things in them anyway. So, but I think this discussion, it's always good if people consume more plants. It's good for all those reasons that we discussed before. But what I said earlier also, I think what we see that customers not what you, there's a saying in Estonian, what you are what you eat, isn't it? So we don't just eat food, this becomes part of who we are. It has to come with the values of the company, of the food that you put on the table. So it's not only a question about how many percent there are plants in a product, but what is the reason you eat plant-based food? What are the reasons you buy this product, and who produces it? So it's a value-based decision very much as well.
All right. Ivo, how do you view this question?
Yeah, I completely agree with you regarding the value, and I mean food production is all about money and marketing. So if you can make it cheaper for the longer shelf life and it follows the trend, it's easy to market, then it's selling like a hot cake, right? Quite often manufacturers do not really care about the health of the people, they care about the money. So fortunately, this is being changed by regulatory when now it's required that you have all the ingredients listed. So take 20 years back and it was not required, so you didn't even know what did you eat. So, but still, there is strong push from the, let's say, capitalists who want to make more money. And if plant-based ingredients are answer to that, to make it cheaper, to make longer shelf life, then it's the way to go for them. So they're not really thinking about how to make your food healthier. So that's what you have to think.
We were talking earlier about the larger trends, and you were saying that sustainability and packaging are large questions, big questions for you. Can you tell us a little bit what you're working on? What are these, like the next innovations that you would like to put into development, or you already have in development in your companies, and like what are the new big exciting things for you? We can start maybe from Stiina.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that
That's okay.
that maybe Karin can start, because then I can have enough time to think what I can say and what I can't.
So I will start maybe about good news that we have a new line of plant-based yogurts coming out, hopefully in the new year. This much about news, but what's puzzling us and about the trends, packaging is really one thing. If we need good, sustainable, recyclable packaging that at the same time doesn't compromise shelf life. Sorry, but there's no such package on the market yet, or it is, or the price maybe there is somewhere in development, but the price is not yet then suitable for production, but we haven't come upon such a good package. So there are. That's the difficulty. I think the food industry is ready to move on, ready to move faster, but to my knowledge, packaging industry is still developing this in this area. So we are really keeping an eye on that we are really hoping that this issue will solve soon. That yes, this is one thing, and I think another trend. That is actually a trend from the 1850s. So if name Louis Pasteur says anything to you, he started thinking about it, and we're still thinking about it. So Ivo touched this subject as well, how to be able to extend shelf life at the same time, not to compromise taste and quality of the product. So we're still looking into it. There are, if you want, for example, like really concrete things that are interesting. High pressure pasteurization. It's not in cold water, for example. It's pasteurization. That is something I hope that will be available for smaller producers in the next decade. Right now, the prices of these products or the machines are beyond our reach. So I'm really hoping that the innovation in this sector moves so fast that these kinds of machines and production means become available to smaller producers as well. Hoping.
Mm-hmm. Stiina, do you have some answers?
In terms of product development, I'm gonna be quite quiet because maybe, I don't know, a friend of Premia is sitting here and then they will be a day faster than us. It counts. But in terms of packaging, I totally agree with Karin that even though when we would like to make those changes quickly, and already today that the packaging companies are surprisingly slow, and yeah, that is actually very surprising. And of course, there are already those biodegradable options as well, but we don't have enough research on it. Because from what I have gathered from other suppliers is that when we are using this biodegradable solution or even compostable version, then when we compost it, these particles can get into water, and then there's this issue of microplastic in the water. So there are not good enough options at the moment, and I think this is a major, major issue.
Right, so something to develop and invest in. I'm going to take one question from the audience here too. What is your opinion about labeling food products with unified environmental impact labels? For example, CO2, water or land use per product. What do you think about that? Tough questions. Would it be, I don't know, something that you would do, or is too drastic, for example, or what is your view on that?
I think Oatly already is doing it, right? Yeah. My opinion, it is a good question. If it would be beneficial for the customer, sure. But I think today, when we look at the packaging, it could get lost, or it could confuse the consumer even more. Maybe if there's too much on the package, then it is worse. I don't know, what's your take?
If I can add, it's very grassroots level. My first question would be, who's the one to certify us? So who's the one to see if the label, who's going to inspect us, so to say? Because food production, we face heavy inspections every day. So, so the question is how it's inspected, who is going to certify, and how it can be used and what terms. I think if these issues, and these are not issues that we can resolve, it has to be from the government to be able to provide the means to do so.
Ivo, do you have an opinion on this? Should packages include this kind of information?
Like CO2 and so on, yeah?
Yes, but water
about
and
all
land
food
specific.
or just the package CO2 or?
I'm guessing the whole entire content of the package.
Entire content. I think the price reflects actually how much it harms the earth. The pricier it is, probably more it harms.
Right, thank you. All right, I will try and ask a couple of more questions from the audience. One of these is very, very specific, and I do not know if you can answer it, Karin, or anybody else, really. And it goes like this. Soy contains isoflavones that act like estrogen in the body. High levels of estrogens are related to increase in breast cancer. Should we avoid soy? Very important question for your product, I guess.
There are different studies on that, actually. There are studies also saying that it does not affect breast cancer. I'm not able to quote the studies here, but there are many studies that counterfact these facts as well. Do look into it or contact me. I can send you some.
Very good. My last question to you today, I think we're almost out of time. Is what are some developments in food production that you are most excited about? You were talking about sustainability and packaging, and there's issues related to that. There's not good enough options or cheap enough options, or and things like that. But is there something that really sparks your eyes and you think, okay, this is good. I hope this develops fast and this provides us a lot of options, and I'm very excited about this. Anybody can start.
Personally, I'm super interested in functional foods. Whether it is chocolate that has melatonin in it so you could sleep better, whether it's, I don't know, prebiotics in a drink form, whether it's some kind of a bacteria in a yogurt. I think this is going to be super big. We can already see it in the United States that it's developing quite faster, and I think it will slowly also make the way into Europe.
All right, thank you.
So what I'm waiting for to see is in these processed foods. So we have to have less ingredients. So quite often the ingredients list is so long and it takes so long time to understand does it contain something that is not good for my body. So less ingredients, more natural. Of course, it comes with a cost of less shelf life and pricier, but yeah, and less kind of campaigns or trends. I think the trends are kind of coming from the marketing side, someone trying to sell, and then again we see problems in public health like obesity or growing heart diseases and diabetes and so on. So yeah, simpler food I think will make the thing.
Interesting. Functional food, simpler food, very good. Karin, what do you think?
What I'm personally interested in, and this Ivo, I think, also shortly discussed it about traceability, that at the time of very fast digital development, I'm really eagerly waiting for example, blockchain to be used in the way that we can really trace our product from bean, how it's harvested to how it reaches your table. And I'm really hoping that while we have this digital development agenda at the state level, that our governments in the near future maybe see that it is necessary, especially when things like listeria outbreaks and salmonellosis outbreaks occur, that this is something that's necessary, and the food producers can really benefit from the government's help as well in this area.
Thank you very much. I hope you will be around a little bit if somebody wants to maybe come and talk to you. There were several questions about investment. I think you better ask Ivo directly. But thank you very much, and a huge round of applause for panelists.